Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. We would like to start the session. Thank you very much for joining today. Recap Google I/O 2023 is to recap the Android session that was announced at the Google I/O 2023. This year, Line, ZOZO, and Yahoo, three companies are jointly hosting this hybrid session, both online and offline. And we are happy to see so many participants, especially online today. And towards the end of the session, we have the panel discussion. But before we do that, then we want to make a toast. So those who are joining online, please prepare your drink now. We will have the engineers from each companies to present the recap and summaries. And if there is the update to the announcement, then we will be letting you know on the Compass page, #LG1IO23JP. This hashtag will be used to give you the update. The latest Android technology should be learned as soon as possible, and they have the deeper knowledge. And I hope that you will have the opportunity to network with other colleagues. So please enjoy today's event. For this webinar, we have the interpretation service. Interpretation functionality of Zoom is used. If you go below the interpretation menu, there is some channel you can select, either English or Japanese. If you select English, you can share the English interpretation during the session. And for questions from the QA window of Zoom, we can take that. And also other than that, #LGY, #IO23JP, you can use that to post your questions. And lastly, after the session, please fill out the survey. After today's event, please give us the feedback. And this is the timetable for tonight. This is the opening session, and each company's engineer will present, and then we will have the panel discussion before closing. Without further ado, we would like to move on to the LT. Now I'd like to invite the first presenter.
Right, so it seems to be ready. Introduction of new in Kotlin for Android is the theme of this presentation. My name is Kanno from Yahoo Corporation. And let me briefly introduce myself. Since 2020, I have been working at the Yahoo Japan Corporation. I am in charge of PayPay Market app now. And also, I am participating in online training seminar, but today I am a little bit nervous. So let me go into the topic. So I would like to talk about the history of Kotlin language. The Kotlin language was added as an official language for Android development at Google I/O in 2017. And in 2019, the word Kotlin first was mentioned at Google I/O to enhance the Kotlin language in Android development. We believe that adopting Kotlin for Android development has increased our productivity and allowed us to develop stable applications to date. So At this Google ID, Kotlin 2.0 was introduced, and this is called K2 as a code name and will be the default compiler for Kotlin 2.0. Kotlin 2.0 is up to 2 times better than the current compiler in terms of performance. The new compiler is expected to enable more Kotlin language features to evolve in the future. A stable version of this will be available in the next year onward. Kotlin 2.0 can be used by changing the Kotlin version of your project to 2.0. And next, I would like to explain on Kotlin DSL. In Android development, the Groovy build.gradle has been adopted as the main build script language to define build. Kotlin has been released as an option since Gradle version 5.0 in 2016. I think many of you have been using it. But this time, it has finally been announced that the default language for build scripts will be switched to Kotlin. This makes Kotlin language the single default language used for all project code, including UI and Jetpack Compose. Kotlin is a versatile language that is very suitable for creating DSLs, for example, that static type system, concise expressive syntax, and functional programming structure, so that creating readable and constructible DSL is now easier. And from here, I would like to explain the advantages of choosing Kotlin DSL over Groovy from 4 perspectives. Firstly, regarding compile time checking, the difference is that Groovy, which has been the default language, is a dynamic language, while Kotlin is a statically typed language. Therefore, in the case of the Kotlin DSL, errors in defined syntax occur at the compile time, not at runtime. In the case of dynamic type checking, errors are not detected until the defined syntax is executed. As shown in the image, errors are highlighted while editing the build script on IDE, allowing for immediate correction. And next, it improves IDE experience. IDE auto-completion and content assistance, source code navigation, and refactoring. Adopting Kotlin DSL allows you to take full advantage of IDE's capabilities. As shown in the image to the left, you can refer to quick and accurate coding tips when editing code. Also on Mac OS, you can press Command B to get type and method documentation and Command click to go to the underlying source code. These allow you to understand the meaning and usage of the code on IDE. At present, these experiences are provided to IntelliJ and Android Studio. Thirdly, it's about simplified declarative plugin syntax. Kotlin DSL offers a different syntax than conventional Groovy DSL and has the same benefits as the Kotlin language itself. In the Kotlin DSL, when applying a Gradle plugin to a project, only the plugin ID needs to be specified. The images show the difference between Groovy and Kotlin syntax. The Groovy DSL defines application this way, but in case of Kotlin DSL, because of simple syntax, you need to simply type application. Also, as explained earlier, IDE will display a syntax error if you try to apply a plugin that does not exist. The fourth advantage is the developers community around Kotlin. Kotlin has a large community of developers who contribute to the language and the libraries and provide Gradle plugins. The growing community provides a wealth of information for both experienced developers and Kotlin newbies. This includes official Kotlin documentation, forums, blogs, threads on social media, and online educations. With so many helpful resources available, I think you will be able to easily find a solution to the problem. So these are the advantages of Kotlin DSL from 4 perspectives. And Android Studio Giraffe now provides Kotlin DSL by default when creating a new project or module. This is a quick way to try Kotlin DSL. Please update it. And Gradle will continue to provide support for the Groovy DSL, so existing projects using Groovy will not be affected. If you are using Groovy or are considering migrating to Kotlin, be aware that large projects with complex build logic may experience lower build performance. For migration, please refer to the official migration guide. And as a related change, the new project template now includes the Kotlin DSL build script, as well as an experimental option for using Gradle version catalogs as an addition. A version catalogs is a library management method introduced in Gradle 7.0. It provides a scalable way to define project dependencies. It is optional to use, but in combination with Kotlin DSL, more type safety improvements can be expected in the build definition. If you use this together with Kotlin DSL in the new project template, please note that this is provided as an experimental option and may not have been adequately tested. We believe version catalogs will simplify dependency management and provide a consistent build setup. Please refer to the official documentation for a guide to migrate for version catalogs. Lastly, about KSP, the generation of Kotlin code began with CAPT, a Kotlin annotation processing tool. CAPT allows annotations written for the Java programming language to be used in Kotlin code. CAPT works by generating Java stubs from Kotlin files, then the processor can process it. The generation of these stubs was a time-consuming operation that significantly impacted the build speed of projects using annotation processing. KSP is the solution to this problem. KSP analyzes Kotlin code directly. Unlike CAPT, KSP does not require stub generation, so it is up to twice as fast as before. And also, KSP is able to process more accurate Kotlin type information, such as nullable, than CAPT, so you can respond to type requirement accurately. Since CAPT is currently in maintenance mode, it is recommended to migrate from CAPT to KSP as much as possible. So these are the main libraries supported by KSP. And PayPay Flima service that I am in charge as already introduced. And lastly, this is a summary. This time, I introduced K2 and also explain the Kotlin DSL and Groovy DSL and the Gradle version catalogs and KSP. Besides these, there are other Kotlin functions being already offered, so please check it. With that, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much. So I would like to open the floor for Q&A. Kanno-san, please come here. Okay. And the presenter for the next session, please start preparation. And I would like to check the questions online. I would like to invite the questions from the floor in the room. Kotlin DSL. My impression on Kotlin DSL is slow. Are there any solution to that? Kotlin DSL execution is slower over Groovy. That has been said, or that has been reported so far. But do you have any suggestion for that? Well, I am not familiar with the update related to the speed for Kotlin DSL. Excuse me. Thank you. All right. There are anybody else have the questions? It seems that there are no questions posted on Q&A box. And if there are no other questions, I would like to close Q&A for this session. Thank you very much, Kanno-san.
Next is Horie-san. Title is How Does the Relay Connect Android App Development and Design? Are you ready, Horie-san? Good evening. I am Horie from ZOZO. So today I am joining this recap Google I/O 2023 offline, and I'm very nervous. And today's title is the How Does a Relay Connect Android App Development and Design? First, let me introduce myself. I work for the Technology Division, Technology Strategy Department, CTO section at ZOZO Inc. And recently, I wasn't so involved in the Android app development, and I am more involved in solving the cross-organizational issues from the development perspectives. And the first time the relay was talked was, I believe, in the Android Dev Summit in 2021. From the Figma design data, the composable was generated. I saw the demonstration video and I wanted to use it as soon as possible. And in the Google I/O 2023, there was one relay session. Using the relay, you can experience the development of the one Android application flow. And today I would like to introduce the how we can use a relay to connect the Android app development and design. So what is a relay? Well, in short, this is the Jetpack composable functions could be used from Figma design file. So this is a generation tool, and here, this is the demonstration or the image. I'm just starting the emulator here. This is using the relay to generate a composable, and how to generate a composable from the relay Figma design file. First, you create the UI component from the Figma, and this is the component sample to display the recap Google I/O 2023 event. And once the component is generated, it can be converted into UI package using the relay for Figma plugin. And this is the screen. And this is converted to the UI package as the component unit. And what is the UI package? UI package is the UI model that can share the Figma and the Android Studio. It's like an intermediate representation. UI package includes these information, such as a layout information, package summary. UI package is generated from component. And next is the relay for Figma plugin is used to import this UI package to Android Studio. If you install this relay for Android plugin in the Android Studio, then you should see this menu added, and also you can get the UI package by entering the URL of the Figma. And once you get the UI package, then it's placed below the UI packages of the Android project. It's imported to the Android Studio. And now composable will be generated from UI package with the Relay Gradle plugin. So Relay Android plugin generate the composable from UI packages when the Android project is built. So once the doors or generate relay code and generate a relay and runtime code will be added with the plugin. And if you generate this, then it can generate the composable from the UI packages So this is a flow to convert the component into the composable. And this is from the Figma to Android. So it's not from the Android to the other directions. So if the design is updated on the Figma side, how is it reflected on the Android project? Once the design is updated on the Figma side, the version history should be stored. And after that, Android Studio execute the update UI package. Then the UI package is updated. And after that, Android project can be rebuilt. Then the Figma design update is also updated or reflected to the composable. We understood that the composable is generated from Figma component, but what about the other cases? For example, dynamically change the text and image and handling component with multiple UI patterns or handling clicks and other interactions. How can we do that with Relay? So I will explain. First, dynamically changing text and image with Relay, content parameters is used. On Figma, Relay for Figma plugin is used to add the annotation from parameters here. Some title descriptions are designated as content parameters. And once UI package is updated, then you can see the content package is added, although it's hard to see. And the composable can expect to receive the arguments such as a thumbnail, title, and description described by the content parameters. And if you have the multiple UI patterns in the component, well, with Figma, variant function is used to summarize a multiple component as a variant. So enum is generated from a phenum variant to switch the composable. This is a generated code. There are two design variants component enums defined. Design variants only have two patterns and the enum members are also two. Generated composables will receive the enum as view property, and depending on the enum values, display composable is switched over to generate the code. With design variants, you can define the content parameters, thumbnail, title, descriptions, have the two design variants common components, and those two design components can be set at the same time with the content parameters. And this is a generated code. Two components will receive the parameters. And next is the handling the click and the other interactions. Interaction handlers are used for click and the other interactions. Relay for Figma plugin is used to add the annotation, the tab handler annotation from parameters. And now entire design variants is selected. So you can set the onTapped by summarizing those into two components. This is the generated code. OnTapped lambda can be added, and each component can receive this OnTapped. That's how the code is generated. And the interaction handler, well, you can partially add the component. And this is the list type display. And the right bottom, you can see the usual menu icon, and tab handler is added here. And this is again generated code. On menu tapped, this is the name of the annotation, and this is reflected as a property as is. And the list type composable can only receive this. This is how it's implemented. And composable created with Relay, how can we manage the state? Well, UI package is a stateless. So for example, you can manage the state with the wrapping was it composable. For if you tap the menu, then you can implement the processing to show the drop-down menu. And this is the generated event components composable, wrap composable. So you can show the drop-down, and also you can hide the drop-down. And this is how Relay covers these cases now. Based on what I just explained, the sample app was created. So Figma generated components are used to develop the apps. I won't go into the details, but the Relay has the other functionalities such as mapping Figma's styles to compose themes. So the Figma's style can be converted to the theme, and another one is a mapping component to existing code. When you generate a Relay code, a particular element or the composable could be replaced with the specific ones, and these are the pros and cons of using the Relay. So the composable generated from design files are considered accurate, and it's easy to develop the Android app with UI package. For good or worse, you need to design with a generated code in mind. And also you need to set the component or style on Figma, and that's necessary. And also you need to set the auto layout and constraint, and you need to revisit the roles of the designer and the engineers, content parameters or interaction hundreds annotation, adding that as the designer or the engineers, and also naming convention of component and UI package granularity. Those needs to factor in. In summary, using the Relay design and the Android development can be connected, and the Figma design data can generate the composable. It's very interesting, and the update will be something we are looking for. If you can introduce this Relay in the development process, we can expect the productivity improvement. And lastly, when you are interested in learning about the Relay, then please watch the build complete app with Relay and the Compose and the Do Code Lab. And also there's a document on the Android developer documentation, and please do the hands-on. And maybe with a designer, please use the Figma composable. Then it's easy to understand. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Horie-san. We'd like to take questions, so please come here, Horie-san. That's interesting. I am very interested, especially if we get the Figma related one from designer. I want to use that. I think we have the QA. Is it possible to manually adjust the generated code? Yes, you can adjust it, but when Android project is rebuilt, then it's overridden. So adjustment is not possible in that sense. If you want to adjust, then you can use a mapping functionalities to replace with the existing composable, although I didn't talk about it today. Thank you. Any other questions? Suzuki-san, Twitter hashtag, from where to where, it seems hard to define using the app, using the Figma. So can you, using the Relay. So can you just define the extent? You try it, and if you generate the large unit of the composable, then, for example, if you set the many component parameters, it's a lot of work. So you need to design the Figma in a way you can target it at the generated code, certain generated code. So it's better to have the granular code generation. But you need to talk to the designers or other Android engineers. Thank you. Any other questions from the floor? May I? There's another one on Twitter. Well, can we do that on the iOS? Can we do the same thing with iOS? With iOS and the web front from Figma to generate the code, there are several use cases. So Swift UI conversion can be possible with iOS, I think. In case of the iOS, maybe Swift UI or Android multi-platform Kotlin iOS is supported. So maybe in the future, everything can be done with Kotlin. So that will be welcomed as Android engineers. Anyone else has any other questions? If not, we would like to close the Q&A session for this. Thank you, Horie-san.
And now next session. The predictive back transition animation on Android 14 is the title of this presentation given by Chigito-san. I will give a presentation titled Predictive Back Animation in Android 14. My name is Chigita from Line Corporation. So you are able to jump to the presentation with this QR code. Please use that if you cannot see it clearly. So these are what I will talk with the slides today. The first one is what is about the predictive back, what is all about. But before that, I would like to ask some questions as an ice break. And so please raise your hand for those who are here or use hashtag to answer. So these questions are related to Android. That replicated on-back pressed API. I think that you have been using this for a long time, but how much or how many of you have been replacing this? On the left-hand side, I'm still considering this middle one is we are changing it to step by step. And thirdly, that I have already replaced almost all implementations. So for those on the webinar, please tweet these icons. And okay, so answer number one, I'm still considering doing nothing yet. All right. And answer two, we are changing to it step by step. Okay, I expected that this the highest number. Third one, we are perfect. We are already perfect. Replaced all. Please raise your hand with confidence. All right, the reason why I ask these questions, this predictive back requires replacing this replacement. And so that this replacement step is mandatory to use to predictive back. So I have said the word predict back several times. So, but what is it? Is the next question. As on the left-hand side, when you press the button, then that activities are finished and go to the home screen, then that I moved like this, but with the predictive back, that window, all of the windows is scaled to around 90%. And then with this, it indicates that screen is going back to the home screen. So this is what predictive back can do. So with this UI effect, the users would be easily able to know to which screen it's going to. And also, And there are other main points. So I have picked out some. For example, it can, when you return from an activity to activity or back to home, that it can indicate to where it is returning. And at this moment, this is a developer option, and this has been, but this will be introduced as a default in the near future, and also to predictive back, that using this component, that you will be able to use more animation or use animation more effectively. And next topic is how to use update, how to address this function of features. So as I said, the API SDK 33 and 34 has some difference. That up to the target SDK 33, you could only settle true or false for applications at once. But from target SDK 34, it can be set for each activity. Therefore, you are able to accommodate the predictive back partly. So in terms of XML, so far you can write only to the application previously, but can be written to activity with the update. And next, I will talk about the update in Android 14 for this predictive back. So this predictive back was introduced as a developer option in Android 13. So if your Android is 13, so please put it on, and probably that your setting up has been already accommodated, but what's been changed with the SDK 34? Firstly, as I said, that it can handle by activity or per activity. And secondly, part of or some M3 components support predictive back. More specifically speaking, that search and search has been supported, and from API level 34 in on-back, pressed call back, some methods have been added so that you can create custom-made animations. First, I would like to talk about that the predictive M3 components. So these are the animations from the search M3, for example. So far, so from the bottom, it's been changed like this, but today that animation is scaled down a little bit and gradually change the screen. So the users will be easily able to know that only the bottom part will be changed. And the material 3 GitHub is searched, and then I found that the future support plan is bottom navigation or navigation rail on the left-hand side, and navigation bar are included in the future plan. And to use this feature, MDC Android library 10.0 alpha 03 is required. And next, I'd like to talk about the customized custom animation. In Android 14, the transition animation between activities can be applied, and it's possible to customize it. So this is an example of a customization. As you can see on the right-hand side, so I'll swipe from the left. So it says bye. The Android robot says bye. So that animation to swipe can be handled or manipulated. And on the left-hand example, that these numbers express to where or to which position on the screen the user swipe. And I will show some example of this. So these are the summary of implementations. So first, the enable on-back invoked callback to be set, and then it can be used for all animation. That's ideal, but you can gradually set it, and then that you add callback and an option then that the handle progress of on-back press. And I would like to talk about that, the callback and also that animation. So this is only for the callback. These are the only for the callback. So Android Activities 1.0, 8.0 has the addition. So during the swiping or swiping canceled or swiping restarted, these are the point which can be handled. So on back pressed from swipe from left or swipe from right are being handled, and thus were displayed. And for custom animation, that we have a design guide available. So how many percentage of scale can be changed, or other limitations can be referred in this guide. And this slide is created on the basis of the Google I/O session. So please refer to that as well. So this is the summary. So the predictive back will enable as default near future. And so to start to apply, to accommodate it as soon as possible is recommended, and apply predictive back per activity. And thirdly, the custom transition animation can be implemented in addition to M3 components. So that to provide the value or certain surprise or fun that this is very usable. So with that, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much. So let's move on to Q&A. All right. Are there any questions from the floor? Are there anybody who would like to ask questions in the room? If not, I would like to ask a question. So with the new Android, so this can be set by activity, but the how about by plugment or per plugment? Well, it's not possible. So that within the range of the activity for the Android is the limitation, and I do not think there will be further support implemented. Like at one time that single activities became popular, but for this, the single activity cannot be applied, or it is be difficult to apply this to single activity. Suzuki-san, we have what are the merit of setting this by activity, or the merits or demerits by setting the application or by activity? Well, originally, it depends on how you handle the on-back press. So if you put the change with on-back pressed or by activity, then that something that called by on-back press cannot be called. Then that the host, the numbers or volume that the host should handle be increasing. So if there is such a limitation, and that I recommend you to transfer or migrate to the next step by activities. Okay, so you mean that the more the screen and more the workload. Yes. And nobody has fully replaced to this, but the questions like how hard it was, how difficult it was to replace to it. And I think I saw many icons, the crying icon, and we received one question on Zoom, so that it cannot be done on the unit of compose navigation. Well, I have not searched to the compose case yet, but probably it cannot be done, or there may be a way to do it, but officially it's not discussed. Thank you. Any other questions? If not, we'd like to close this session. Thank you very much, Chigita-san.
Moving on to the next session. Next is the Jetpack Compose Debugging to fix performance problem. Presenter is Tanigawa-san. So I'd like to present a titled Jetpack Compose Debugging to fix the performance problem. I'm from Yahoo Japan Corporation. My name is Tanigawa. First, let me introduce myself. I graduated from university in 2021 and joined the Yahoo Japan Corporation as Android engineers. And currently I am developing the application for the PayPay flea market and the Yahoo auction. And since I was in college, I was developing the applications and the publicizing to the Play Store, and you can see the images here. So these are the flashcard when you learn the words by heart, and I created apps of this flashcard, and it's on the Google Play. So from the Google I/O sessions, based on the debugging Jetpack Compose sessions, I would like to talk about the debugging method to improve the performance of Jetpack Compose. First, using the debugger and the Android Studio to do the recomposition verification. And after that, I will explain about the verification using the tool called the layout inspector. And after explaining those two, I will use a sample application to improve the performance and check the behavioral changes, and I will recap at the end. First, this is the verification of the recompositions using the Android Studio debugger. With Android Studio, currently as a Canary build version, Hedgehog is available. From this version, within the Android Studio debugger, you can check the parameter called the recomposition state. If you check the recomposition state, you can understand which one has become the trigger out of the data passed to the composable, and what was the trigger for the running the recomposition. Let's use the debugger and check the behaviors. So this is a sample. So composable functions are defined as items. So if you use a breakpoint at the beginning of the functions, then you can see the debugger stopping at the time of the composable recomposition processing, and they check the values. And this is the values within the debugging tools. And when you check the recomposition, it's easier to understand if you check the values of the recomposition state, and if you check the values of the parameters of the recomposition state, it shows like button is changed. So recomposition processing is running was the trigger of the is show like button. And if you use the debugging function of the Android Studio, then you can see which recomposition processing is running and what data has become the trigger. And there are 5 types of the state that you can check with the recomposition state. I won't go into the details, but if you are interested, please see the Google I/O Android Studio debugging session. Next is the verification using the Android Studio layout inspectors. So recomposition, timing, and the frequency, and also the way to visualize the recomposition processing will be covered in this section. Using the layout inspectors, the debugging has the pros and cons. The pros are for example, you don't need to stop the application behaviors when you debugging those scrollable components such as a list, display, and a view pager. And also you can intuitively understand the number of times that the recomposition has executed on the tool. And also you can visually check this extent or scope of the recomposition within the tool. On the other hand, the disadvantages of using the layout inspectors are, for example, there's no clue about which parameter has triggered the recompositions. Considering those pros and cons, I will explain about the debugging method using layout inspector. As a sample, I prepared a simple application to display the item list. Each item has a like button, and you can register and remove the like. And using this app to explain about how to use the layout inspector, on the left-hand side, you can see the composable tree. And on the left-hand side, there is a composable tree. And the right-hand side, you can see the app screens being executed with the emulators. And as an initial display, composable tree is folded, but you can select the composable that you want to check. And as an example, the third items, when the like button is pressed, what happens? So let's look at the behavior. This is after clicking the like, and the left-hand side component tree shows number 1 here. So this number indicates the recompose count on the left-hand side column, and the right-hand side shows the skipped count. As for the recompose count, it checks the changes of the parameters passed to the composable argument, and it shows the fact that the composable is recomposed, and also using the layout inspector for debugging, you don't have to stop the application behavior and identify the location of the recompositions. And if you use the layout inspectors, you can visually check the view of the recomposition processing at some point. And if you click the like for the items, then the recomposition process execute for the corresponding item, and this scope or extent of the recomposition process is highlighted in blue color, so you can visually check that. And if you acquire the data through API, or if there was a user operation such as like, then it's very convenient to check that whether there is additional recomposition happening or not. So far, I explained about the debugging using the Android Studio debugger and the layout inspectors. As examples, I showed the performance improvement, and I will use the tools to check the behavioral changes. And with the Jetpack Compose, there is the lazy column as a function to represent the list display, and the 3-column list is going to be displayed using the lazy vertical grid. And that's how the sample app was implemented in this demo. So we expect the list is updated and the item is added at the beginning of the list, and the recomposition should be optimized. This is the display of this added element in the front of the items using the add button. And this is the layout inspector, this screen, and then not just the added items or element, this recomposition happened the overall entire list. To avoid this issue, we revised to set the key in the item of the lazy vertical grid. So the ID is passed as a key of each items, and the Jetpack Compose side can uniquely understand the items, and there's no recomposition process for the item that doesn't have any variance. So let's check the improvement using the layout inspector. So I will click the add button. You didn't see any blue highlight. There's no blue highlight. So that means that the issue of the recomposition processing to the entire list was resolved. Recomposed count and the skipped count was a red frame. Those recompositions processing were skipped for the items. And as an example, I used a layout inspector, and we try to reduce the unnecessary recompositions, and you can check the behavior after making modification. This is summary. To improve the application performance, I explained about the debugging method using the Jetpack Compose. From the Hedgehog, you can use the Android Studio's standard debugger. Within that, you can check the parameters of the composition state and to identify the data that became the trigger for the recomposition. And if you use the layout inspectors, you don't need to stop the application behaviors and check the number of the recomposition and the skip. And if there are any data changes, and if you want to check the scope of the recomposition, you can use this. And other than this, in the Google I/O sessions, there are many easy explanation in the Jetpack Compose Debugging method. So if you are interested, please watch it. And thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Tanigawa-san. Please come here. We'd like to take questions now. It was very easy to understand the presentation. Great presentation. I would like to use this too. I'm not so involved in the development on a daily basis, but I got the feeling that maybe with this it's easier, but maybe not. Now we want to check the questions. Is this presentation material available? Yes. For this presentation material, it will be, yes, available. It will be available for you. So URL will be shared with you later. So maybe using this, audience can learn more or share this with others. So please take advantage of it. Any questions on Twitter? Hedgehog, it's quite new, but do you use that to replace the product, the Jetpack? Well, in the PayPay flea market, we are experimenting this, but we are in a very initial phase, but we are using it. If we had this, then did you have any hard experiences with Jetpack Compose? If you have this, then maybe it would have been easier compared to traditional XML implementation. Data or how to create a view is changed. So resource will be the big difference. Thank you. Anyone else maybe on the floor? Any questions about the debugger or anything else? On the Twitter, I don't see that question. So if not, we would like to close the Q&A session for this. So thank you, Tanikawa-san.
Now that we have completed the part of LT and we are moving to the panel discussion. But before the panel discussion starts, we would like to do a compile. So the participants online and offline, please be ready with a drink. All right, so the panelists, please come up onto the stage or come to here. Okay, are we going to do compile? And then are you ready with the glass of drink? Okay, and thank you very much for your participation. Cheers, kanpai. I hope this is okay. I do not get used to do this. Okay, so today that we have invited panelists first from this side, that Horie-san from ZOZO and Tamaki-san from Line and Mori-san from Yahoo and the Suzuki from Yahoo join as a panelist. So from now on, the panel discussion is going to be facilitated by Horie-san. All right, so I'll try to do my best. As far as the panel discussion is concerned, and Suzuki-san, you are joined or participated the I/O on site. Yes, I was so lucky that I could go to the site, so I'd like to share the photos. And those on the photos are the venue, which opened very early in the morning. So for those who registered, go through the reception, were able to enjoy some food. And then there were the different type of food, including vegan food, were offered. And for those who participated I/O before, know this very well. However, this was the first time for me, so I was a bit surprised at the scale of the venue. And I include the video on the venue so you can see the wave among the audience. Okay, thank you. So this is a lunchbox that you had, yes. And underneath is the program in the afternoon. For the afternoon session, I participated in the Android and the developers keynote, but there were several sessions ongoing in parallel, and that this time that they offer the different type of session for the specialist for the certain areas, and also that some new device, the tablet, including the tablets, been released. So that they showed or indicated that the application which allows the seamless operations will be offered. I wish I was there, but from next year onward, yes, I am going to try or to apply for it. Right, Mori-san, Tamaki-san, thank you for joining. And first, at I/O 2023, which presentation was most impressive for you, Tamaki-san? Well, as I can see it, the Studio Bot presentation it's appeared, and suddenly and recently the generative AI has just chat GPT. So it's a hot topic, but the GitHub the publishing is another topic. But I was surprised at that this was the session at Android Studio, and when the error occurs at the start, so right click and ask the what to do, then ask the cause of that and what to do. Then when in this case that these should be added and showing with the specific button. So it's very pleasant and very helpful. So when we are in charge of a small project, that sometimes we have forgotten about the solution, but this was so helpful.
So I was preparing for today's sample app and I forgot to add this. And I also agree with you, the Studio Bot was very memorable. And Mori-san also chose the Studio Bot. Yes. How was the Studio Bot session? You saw the Studio Bot and you listened to the session. What was your impression? Visual Studio Code was combined with ChatGPT. But I don't know to what extent it can be used at this point. Thank you. I also saw the Studio Bot. New Android Studio, new features are introduced, and the Studio Bot was also announced, and the test code is generated. So I thought that was positive. Next. What session did you find interesting? Tamaki-san again. The first one is what's new in Kotlin for Android. In the first LT, it was mentioned the language Kotlin is being more focused by Android, and K2 compiler can accelerate the compiler speed that's welcomed by the developers. And personally, the Gradle Kotlin or Gradle KT script, well, I like it. So once we are able to create with Gradle, then I use the Kotlin script to rewrite a build script, and this being the mainstream. So I am personally a fan of the Kotlin language, so that's very positive. So KDS will probably be the default next time that you will create the new project. And another one is a Flutter session. Yes. Well, recently I developed the application with Flutter on a personal basis. So I saw the several Flutter sessions. So this title attracted me. It says the Flutter meets Raspberry Pi. So I thought the Raspberry Pi. So that's why I joined. Raspberry Pi OS. Within the Linux, it's running. So Flutter support the Linux. Flutter apps actually runs on that. So within this session, using the Raspberry Pi, switch like the game console machine, and hat is implemented to create the 2D games. And the Flutter, well, easy to write language, can be used to create games. And this is a Flutter app. Perhaps this could be reused to the mobile app. So I thought this is quite interesting. Thank you. The running a Flutter on Raspberry Pi is also interesting. Tamaki-san, thank you. Next. Earlier, I asked Mori-san, so let me just start this time. Generative AI is a hot topic recently. What's new in generative AI session was available, so I watched that. It was interesting. Palm API, how to use that was covered. And also use cases were shown. Very interesting. By calling the API, it's easy to use. And ChatGPT API is interesting, and this is very interesting. And easy on-device machine learning with MediaPipe. MediaPipe emerged. On-device ML can be run on device. It's easier now. And this was very interesting. And towards the end, on-device large language model can be run. That was mentioned. Within a few months, it will be enabled. And I'm looking forward to that. And this is the relay topic presented today. Oh, maybe not. This is the new feature of Android Studio Bot. And other than Studio Bot, Android Studio new features were introduced here. I think it's recommended for you to see this. Mori-san, please.
Currently, personally, that I am remaking that old app, so that I think that data layer is so important. And so if we have a good data layer, the surface can be handled very well, but there's some insufficiency in the data layer, or the insufficiency or in your mind will be appearing on the data layer. And the other one is a building for the future of Android. What's new in Android is good, but this one talks about more about it, and we are able to know what's new. Thank you very much. So they talked about accessibility as well. Yes. And there any questions from the floor or any questions in the Q&A? Well, in Q&A, the question is that food was good? Yes, it was very good. And when you travel to in the United States, not only in for IO, but in general, the volume of the food or the food is very big. So they offer a lunchbox, and yes, there were the big sandwiches, and between the keynote and developer keynote, they distributed snacks. I think that was dry fruit. They offered the dry fruits as a snack, and for those who do not get used to the dry fruits, you may not like them very much, but it was good. And after the program, that there were network sessions, and they serve the alcohol. So the food there was very good. Was there an apple in the food? That's my question as well. Well, is you have a different meaning? Yes, they served the apple. They offered the cut apple, so that the message is just eat it. I'm not sure if that is correct interpretation. All right, so next, what is a new feature and topic that you want to try and you should do on your project. Okay, let's start from Mori-san. Yes. Developing high quality apps for large screens and foldables. Pixel folds have been talked. It's been said the pixel foldings appears, and I thought that it did not appear, but it appears. So our apps are not supporting these the foldables, and there are not many people use foldables, but but now that it's released, so we have to support it. And the other one is the building high quality Android camera experiences. This was for the ones that they created the Android camera, that the aspect ratio, to keep the good aspect ratio, and that those previews should be correctly corresponding, but it's difficult. But according to this session, now it is it is easier, or it is possible to keep these two good aspect ratios and the preview. Okay, at the large screen, it was possible, but we were talking about that we have to support it. Yes, the foldable device like a Galaxy Fold that we receive, we registered some issues, and we found the case that the layout has been decomposed. So I think that personally, I think it has to be checked with as tablets or foldables, that the apps which support the bigger screen, that the usage time be longer. So that supporting them should be worked on. And
Yes, let's set aside whether to support or not, but the maybe we should just check this dictionary size, large size. So for example, if it's not supporting an iPad, then it's like the iPhone, and Apple executes with the black frame outside, but the Android adjust the full screen, but it's important to respond to support that. Yes, we have to try harder. Okay, then it's my turn now. High quality Android media experience. This was about the Media 3. Some players are discontinued, and that requires migration. And ZOZO Town has a lot to do related to the media. So I thought that this session was very interesting. And this is about the relay session. If you watch that, this is to encourage doing the code lab together. I had a lot of learning. If you watch this and do the hands-on, then you'll be able to use the relay. So I think this is interesting. Actually, the using Figma is more difficult. Next is a scalable UI testing solution. Large size test was mentioned, and also the Gradle managed the device Firebase test lab can be connected. So that was interesting. And test related, such as the UI test, could be done with this. Tamaki-san, please. Left-hand side, this is Wear OS. Pixel Watch is available. Now the people are really focusing this, and for Wear OS, there are new notification features and improvement. The separate notification can be sent, and on the Samsung Watch Face builder can be used. Wear OS approach, well, in terms of the Line app, there is the approach app to send the messages, but for Android, it's still unfortunate. So it should be able to do the chat. This is something nice to have on a personal basis. I don't know if it's possible or not, but I wanted to have that if possible. On the right-hand side, this is about the privacy and security. Security and privacy are becoming more and more important over years, and the mechanism to safely protect the users is being created. And this time, storage was mentioned, and also notification to show the, well, you won't be able to show the notification on the forefront, or I should say the dismissing this. If you do that, then the app discontinues or ends. So what do we do? Therefore, the privacy and security is a key critical point, and we need to address this as early as possible. That's why I mentioned it here. Thank you. Privacy, security, accessibility, especially accessibility, it's hard to address, but we should be doing that. So hopefully we can catch up. Thank you. Next. What do you expect from next Google announcement? Maybe next year's I/O, or there will be the Dev Summit in the upcoming fall. Do you expect anything in the upcoming event? Tamaki-san. First, Studio Bot. Currently, it's US only. Alpha version preview is available. But as we live in Japan, we hope to use that in Japan. So we want to get hands-on. And the second is with the Studio Bot, I want to do some things, and from the legacy system or better legacy view system, we want the tool to convert into the compose, for example, layout and XML. We should do this so that they can be switched to the compose. That kind of the magical tool is not available. So maybe Studio Bot could be used. So the source code can be read at the time of the input, and if it's converted into composable, that will be good. So I hope that everything will be done.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mori-san, Studio Bot. Yes, for example, with network inspectors, replace the API at Flamingo. It was talked, but using that, the API which is under development, which is not available yet, that we should check the behavior, but it's possible to check the behavior. But if we try to do that, we need to create a JSON that it's big. And so using the chat GPT will make it easier, make it quicker, meaning that we pass the source code to them so that we are scolded by the company. Yes. So I expect Studio Bot, but at the same time, the governance by the company has to be established. So it's a little bit different topic. Well, thank you. And actually, that the other day we talk about implementing Copilot in the company, but I thought my impression is it's hard to do. And so the code for our work cannot be passed to the external parties. Yes, so lazy column, yes. Lazy column and lazy vertical grid, animations, items, generations, and deletion. Not yet available, so I hope that this will be offered as soon as possible. Yes, yes, I wanted animations. All right, myself expect a studio bot, but development flow using LLM, as Mori-san said, that to create a sample data. So for development, I would like to have more using AI and relay apps. It is working. I'm expecting a lot that additional features will be added in a stable version. Well, sorry, I have not been prepared. But accessibility is not needed for certain services, but accessibilities or UIs, and for those some division of the business, and sometimes it's difficult to let them convinced. But the Google platform and Android Studio, we have a good talk about the accessibility, but how to make it more easier, or that in terms of the accessibility, some parts will be automated and some others can be manipulated. So if we are able to have such flexibility, that may be expected. Next question, and what is interest document in recently? Yes, for me, that I found the page talking about the studio bot, and then that how to handle the data entered in the studio bot. And the studio bot is offered for free, and it can be used for the work. So I hope that this will become available in Japan. And learning pathways is included in the list of sessions. I think that this was not there until last year. So we can filter with the learning pathway. And so here are the contents for learning are gathered here. So for those who start the development for Android now, these are very helpful contents, and the learning pathways have the summary of those learning informations. That's interesting.
And this is the relay document. From the end of last year, the relay document is already publicized, and it's being updated. And what I talked can be also understood by reading this document. That's all from my part. And Mori-san, please. Studio bot. It was very impressive when I first saw that. I wondered how much it can be done. And the Hedgehog was downloaded, and I was asked to log in, so I did. And it's mentioned it's only in US. So at that time, you noticed that you can't use that. And I'm hoping this will come and become available in Japan as soon as possible. In my company's project, I have created this before, the retrofit API. If it's called, then certain things will be returned as a debugging functions with new project. And now it's officially available. And the rule is created, for example, .idea folder, workspace.xml within that node is added, and you can share that within the team. Creating JSON is a lot of work, cumbersome, but if one person created, then you can share the JSON with others. Thank you. Network inspector keeps having the new features and updated, so it's easier to develop. Thank you. Tamaki-san, please. First, this is not much to do with Google I/O, but the material design 3, material U theme builder. I noticed there is a theme builder, and on the line apps, we don't really touch the material UI themes, but I was wondering about the material 3 document, and I saw the document, and dynamic color can be displayed here. It's quite rich, and maybe on the upper part, the customers, there is the button. If you select the color, then this is how it looks. And ultimately, from the export, Android resource file and the Flutter source code defining the colors, and those are available, so you can do export. Looking at the source code there, how to define the color will be the best, can be easily learned. So it's summarized well. It's an informative document that I saw recently. It's quite convenient. All schemas are available here. If you use that, you understand this. It will be very current color tone. So services are very services would like to use the stimulating color or aggressive color, but now it's soft and the gentle colors, I think. Thank you. Another one, Android 14. What's going to change with Android 14? This is a developer's site. Before going to the video, first, you should, I was learning about the Android behavioral changes. And looking at this, I understand what needs to be done. So our apps should be prepared to run on the new Android. So you can understand what needs to be done looking at this document. And what surprised me was first, Target SDK. Well, maybe scroll up a little bit. From Android 14, first Target SDK has to be 23.
Yes, so the first SDK, Target SDK, has to be 23. So this is a new restriction. And so far, as a rule for Google Play, until each day, and the Target SDK should be this. Otherwise, you cannot update the apps. But particularly for Android OS, there was no such restriction. So as long as we use SDK, that we were able to use to run the old apps. But the apps targeting the old one has a vulnerability, and the recent or the latest something cannot be run on that. So that adding these, I welcome adding this. Okay, so we have to accommodate this every year. Well, from the viewpoint of that developer, that we need a certain restriction. Otherwise, those who, in order to convince convincing the persons on the service side to be very difficult or time consuming. Well, so rather than saying that it is possible if we work hard, we would like to say that it's not possible. So with this, that the trend is to make that applications functional on the new ones. Okay, the last question: what is your recommended document for us who want to improve Android development skills? Okay, let's start from Mori-san. Yes, first, Google Samples architecture blueprint. You can find something usable for you and try to run or rewrite. So using this, you are able to learn some, but there are some old information included. And so the data loaders for communications, these were from old days, but this is not recommended, but the compose related one would be recommended. So please, I recommend you to use the custom lint rules. This is interesting. And this one, modern Android app architecture. Basically, this is pathway. So these are the tools for your study. And me, basically the developers is recommended. And so if you read this, that you can find almost everything. And as Mori-san said, the pathways and learning contents is enriched, rich. And Android developers medium, I am looking at it very often. It's interesting, and I know that many of you use this frequently. Tamaki-san? Yes, as two of you mentioned, that the official developer site is most recommended. It contains the correct informations and code lab or pathways. There are different contents there. So this is the one you should first look into, and there is no usable information there. But one thing is that some are translated into Japanese well, but some informations are old. That introductory page for Jetpack, that Japanese version is very low, while that the English version is updated. So if you look into that, I recommend you to go into that English page.
Yes, I also do that often. I look at the English and the Japanese, but the release note is probably provided earlier with the English version. So sometimes that the translation will be provided a little bit later on. Thank you. So we would like to close the panel discussions, but if you have any questions, please. No questions. So that's all for panel discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Right, so we have covered all of the programs. As I mentioned at the beginning, that I would like you to fill in our questionnaires for our survey, and it will be helpful for us and for our future activities or for future events. And after this, we are going to have a network session for the persons in person here, but for online participants. And there are a number of participation, and thank you very much. So let's wave to the panelists. We'll wave to them. Thank you very much for your participation.